Over at the Three Blind Mice, we're hosting the Truck the Wasteland event. For this build, I'm using this Hot Wheels Sandblaster casting. It's obviously a little play-worn. This casting first appeared in 2010 and is based on the 2010 Ford F-150 SVT Raptor, and this continues to be produced today. This particular casting we can tell is from before 2014 because the rear grille is missing. It was removable up to that point. That's why that back looks just kind of open and has that weird hole back there. We're going to use that. The fact that that rear grille is missing works to our advantage. You see, we have a story for this one, which is always fun for the Wastelands builds. This vehicle is owned by Brett Douglas, former military, former mercenary. Planned on settling down and just going to take life easy, was always being a people person, as much as a mercenary can be. He thought he'd settle down and cook barbecue, just have a little barbecue joint. Then the world went to hell. Found himself in the wasteland trying to figure out what he was going to do. But he still had his mind set on barbecuing. You see, he had a way with meat. He was good with a knife. So he found himself and his truck out there. And even though he's born and raised and still lives in what was left of California, and he's not one for fancy food, but he didn't care much for fancy cooking. He liked barbecue, liked meat, had a particular dislike for people who like salad. But being in California, he knew he needed to address their needs, even the survivors. So he did make sure he had a salad bar, as you saw there, for him. So this is his truck. This is the story of his truck and the story of Brett. As you can see, I didn't strip the paint on this casting. I basically took Scotch-Brite pads and steel wool and got rid of the tampos that were on it, roughed it up a little bit. Now, since it's the meat man's truck, he wanted to make sure people knew that. He still had some stencils laying around, and that's why he threw meat on the doors. But basically, I'm just roughing this up a little bit. Those are resin printed wheels. I got rid of the ones that were on there. You probably saw in the original picture, the axle was kind of bent. Went with some AK Interactive rust colors. I did use lead belcher to paint some of the areas on that casting silver. As you see that back weird tank area with the hole in it. Almost looks like a huge gas tank, I guess. That's probably what I would have used the damn thing for, having a nice big gas tank back there, but who knows. But I did use the AK Interactive paints to rust it up a little bit. I weathered it. Again, using the steel wool, roughing up the original color really helped as well. They're the tire black, even those are black printed tires. Those are FDM printed tires. They are not resin printed. The resin printing black turns out better and much more realistic than the FDM printed black. Again, the FDM is like the weed whacker line, fishing line kind of printing system where it melts it and fuses it that way. I did then use the weathering powders as well. And I do hit this towards the end with a flat clear to seal it all in place. I did add detail. You see the windshield up there to the upper left? That had a clear portion of the front grille and clear upper lights molded into that piece, which made it kind of interesting. I had to paint those and mask them off. I also put a windshield wiper pattern on the glass. I did not gauzy the glass, but I masked it off, and then when I did the flat clear, I flat cleared the glass as well. So you do see the windshield wiper pattern. And here you see the basic casting itself going together. There's a few stages to this build. Part of it was just getting this portion to this point. The construction of the truck itself, because, well, like I said, this is the Meatwagon, so you know it's going to take a disgusting turn here at some point. Now, old Brett wanted to provide people with meat, and let's just say he was good at acquiring it as well for people. So this comes together, and I'm pretty happy with the look of this overall. And I'm going to make a couple additions here in a second. But I needed to get the casting together at this point because I'm going to add to the bed of the truck. And it wasn't practical from how that is constructed. The pieces are constructed to add these pieces to the interior and have them come up through the bed. It just wouldn't work that way. And yet I just didn't want to glue them. There was no practical way of doing it because they needed to, what I'm adding needs to stick to that center section. It couldn't come up from below. So at this point, we have a roller and the truck is basically together at this point. I could have stopped at this point, but where's the fun in that? So I bust out the Citadel bone and skull colors, resin printed up some body parts, some bone and skull parts. I hit them with this color first, which is the bone color Citadel, and then there's a lighter skull coloring that I also added to these. It gives it a more realistic look. It's not all one uniform color that way. It does give the skulls a little more weathering. And then I love this paint, Blood for the Blood God, because it looks like blood. And I swear, this stuff coagulates like blood. So I have barrels that I'm putting in the bed. I need to come up with chunks of meat because, see, Brett provides his customers with chunks of meat. They just grab it out of the barrel, or he'll fish it out of the barrel for you if you want it. So this is a barrel of blood that I'm creating. The barrel itself is FDM printed, and I just stuck some cotton down in the base to fill it up halfway, and now I'm putting the chunks of meat into the barrel. And I have to say, I did post a picture of this on the community tab. This turned out really well. I like this a little too much. If you don't have a bottle of this paint and you ever want to do anything that looks like blood, I'm sorry this isn't centered better on the screen. I was just having way too much fun doing this. But if you ever want to do anything that looks like blood, get this paint. I don't care what you're going to mix up on your own. This stuff, it's hard to describe without accidentally poking your finger and bleeding out onto whatever you're building. This is going to be the next best thing. So I have a barrel of bloody flesh chunks, and now I'm creating a barrel because, well, you see, Brett also, in case you need it, is more than happy to provide you with some sun-bleached bone parts. I mean, if you need skulls for your Wastelands vehicle, and you're in the Wastelands, like I said, we're in California. So, some of these people don't want to go out and get bone skulls for, decorations on their cars. They just want to buy it. They don't want to get their hands dirty. I know some of you are laughing at this. Some of you are probably insulted. It's like, what do you mean? Californians will go out and get skulls? Yeah. So I carefully plucked off some of these skulls, threw them in the barrel. If you think that looks like a leg with a foot at the end, you're right, you win. So I put these in there, and then what I end up doing, stuff like this is so tiny to work with, it's tough to place. And you kind of fumble around with it. And then once you have it where you want it, I found what was best for me on this, and as you can see, I'm knocking skulls out of the barrel already, was to use watered down PVA. And I just brushed it on, and I think I show you that here in a second if I remember right. But I stick those in the barrel, and then the watered down PVA, I just brush over it, which when it dries, you don't really see it. It's not like clumps of CA glue or anything like that. It dries clear, it dries thin, and yet it holds this stuff in place. And I haven't used watered down PVA much. I will be as I'm doing more diorama type stuff. But for this, it worked out extremely well. And I definitely see the benefit to it. And there I am just brushing that watered down PVA. And again, I just used regular, this I think in this case was just Elmer's white glue that I always have a bottle of nearby. So here's the basic build. And I'm sure a lot of you might want to tune away right now because this is going to take a drastic turn here in a second. Because, yeah, there's two features to this truck that Brett really wanted to add. This is for the carving station at the back because while he's more than happy to carve chunks of meat for you if you need it, he wants you to have the joy of doing it yourself if you want to. So I resin printed out this skeleton, and what I'm doing here is I'm using cotton kind of like I did for the chunks of meat earlier. I'm taking cotton, I'm dipping it in the blood for the blood god, and sticking it onto that skeleton to make it look like, well, it's not all clean to the bone yet. There's still some meat on there that can be carved off. And so it's on that spike that goes into the hole in the back. Here's where we started. And here's where we finish. That's the carving station at the back. That can be removed. It just goes into that hole. And keep in mind, for people who really want it, he did provide for those of you who want to sell it. Just head to the front of the truck where the sell it bar is, and he'll be sure to take care of you. In fact, some of those skulls back there are from previous sell it bar customers. Maybe a little morbid. Maybe a little much. Maybe you're sorry you went this far in the video. Sick it is, but hey, that's the way I like it. Brett's been very successful. He's thriving in the Wastelands. I hope you've enjoyed this build. Everybody check out the Three Blind Mice channel. There will be a playlist of all of the other participants in this event. I can't wait to see how other people are trucking through the wasteland. Everybody, stay safe and healthy out there. Catch you in the next one.